Sorry for the week-long wait. We had Father's Day, and I've also been replaying the Batman Arkham series, so it's just kind of stopped me. But it's been a week. Hopefully, the last command will not be a week away. Still might be like 5 days away or 4 days away, because the next book is like 500 pages long or something like that, which is longer than most of these books are. So it might take a bit, but I'll get it done. Hopefully before a week. But anyway, welcome back to the Star Wars Expanded Universe. Now read up by Disney or current Lucasfilm Legends. Today we have Dark Forces Rising of the Thrawn Trilogy, continuing basically where we left off last time. Again, I'm going to get into spoilers. Here's the main thing. If you read the last one, you're going to want to read this one. You're going to want to read the next one. This trilogy is worth reading, whether you're a new canon fan or not. So if you have not read these, go read them. Basically, short summary, they find out about this fleet that's pre-Clone War, it's like Clone Wars era fleet, and Thrawn and our heroes want it. Who's going to get to it first? Read the book. And then we get on to the next one. That's pretty much the non-spoiler way to go about it. Alright? But I will say that parts of this book do drag a bit. I do not enjoy it as much as the last one. I feel like the first one was perfectly well paced. That there was no issues with it. I was never bored or anything in any parts of it. And I felt it was just well done. It was a perfect book. A really, really good read. This was also a really, really good read. But if I would give, like, the first book 5 out of 5, this one's like a 4. It's not as good. It's still excellent. There are just certain parts that drag a little bit. I think everything in here is necessary. But some of it does just like, alright, let's get moving. It's just the early stages of what his allegiance and choices of one would be. Because those books were... it was like there were some good parts, but the majority was boring, and this is the opposite. The majority is good. Some of it's a little boring. But yeah, that's non-spoiler. I'm gonna get into it now. So, my first note is that Mara's compulsion to kill Luke is bringing back the Force. Because we since we've been, if you've been reading with me in chronological order, we've already had the Mara Jade comic book. We already know, about Mara Jade. We know her compulsion, her need to find Luke. But now, remember, it's been 5 years since the Emperor's death, so she just hasn't had to really deal with that. She thought she'd never see Luke again, and she kind of just, I guess, lost her power. Like, we already saw in the comic book, it was getting weaker, but it just kind of disappeared completely. But as she met Luke in the last book, it's slowly coming back to her, the Force. And it's like that drive, that need to kill him, that like is bringing it back. So I just found that interesting. Leia talks about the Mon Calamari, because Akbar is currently in prison, still is by the end of this book, unfortunately. And it's interesting, because the only time I really get to see the Mon Calamari's, like, culture is in the Clone Wars. And I don't know how accurate that is with Legends, but Akbar's a really cool side character. Cool fish boy. So it's just cool to learn more about his society. Han's really concerned about Leia and his kids in this book. And it's so good. It's good to see this huge character growth within him. Because, 5 years ago, he wouldn't have cared. Or, sorry, 5 years ago was the Battle of Endor, so, I don't know, like 8 years ago, something like that. He wouldn't be fighting for this. He wouldn't have a family. After Bria, he thought he wasn't going to have that anymore. So, which is really nice. Here's another quote that I had to write down. This is actually going to be shorter. I don't have as many notes as I did in the last one, because it's pretty straightforward. But here's a quote from Grand Admiral Thrawn. Concentration, focus, long-term thinking. Those are the qualities that separate a warrior from a mere flailing fighter. So Chewie is, I love that. I love that quote. But, so there's just the whole plot with the Nogri and Leia. But while she's, like, gonna be going there, she's talking to one of them about Chewie. And Chewie, I guess, he extended his life debt to Leia. And to Luke. And to any kids that Leia may have. That Leia and Luke may have. Because since he has a life debt to Han, as Leia and Luke are family, that by extension makes his life debt be applied to them as well, and to any offspring they may have. And so I just find that really, it just makes their relationship even more stronger and amazing to me. And I haven't read the books yet. Obviously, I'm going in chronological order. And this is, again, if you've not read the new Jedi Order series yet, go. And wow, I'm actually getting kind of sad just thinking about it. Knowing what happens to Chewie in the first book of the new Jedi Order series, this hits because of what I know the future will hold. He really will extend that to their children as well. And when one of those children are in peril, that life debt will be paid. And so, just got me a little teary-eyed. Even though I haven't read it, I know what happens. And so it's just, yeah. I wrote Thrawn so intimidating. He shows up to the Nogri planet because he finds out about the Wookiee hair that was on this one Nogri's ship or whatever. Now he doesn't realize that Leia and Chewie are there, but the Nogri was gone for like a month. So he's like, was he interrogated? Did he give information? And he just didn't tell me because he was scared. But anyway, that whole scene with Thrawn and Leia hiding in the closet was just like, oh, my goodness. For someone that's like, like a non-power, like it's just his brain. He's really scary sometimes. When Luke is with Gyrus, because he finally meets the Jedi clone, he learns that, he tells Gyrus that, Obi-Wan blamed himself. Or I don't know if he tells Gyrus or if this is just him thinking, I forget. But Obi-Wan blamed himself for Anakin. And Luke doesn't want that to happen to Leia's kids. Which, again, hit close. Because if you know the future of these characters, if you know their children's future, then you know the cycle kind of repeats. For different reasons and different motivations. But still. And so it just kind of sucks knowing that future. Knowing that everything will not be happy after this trilogy. I mean, it can be for a bit. But ultimately, it's going to end in sadness. So it kind of sucks. And I already mentioned the Katana Fleet, but when I first heard about it, I wrote it down. I just wrote Katana Fleet, and then I talk about it, but I already kind of talked about it, so we'll skip that. Sabaoth, or Sabaoth, I don't know, I'm freaking. The Jedi dude, old guy. Talking about the prequel era time is fascinating, since there were no prequels. But it still, works pretty well. He's all like, we, the frickin' Senate had its politics, but we, the Jedi, we were the ones who enforced justice, or whatever. Because he's all, super dark side. Got a war perspective, but it really works. If you've watched the prequels, if you read books around that time, it's weird how well that fits. Because this was the 90s, the early 90s. There were no prequels yet. They didn't get made till the late 90s. So it's just, it's interesting how well it fits, considering. And then again with the future, not even necessarily this book, because this book, there's a lot going on, and yet there's not enough to talk about, really. It's really weird. Like I said, this book kind of drags. Like, there's a lot of stuff that's important, I'm assuming, for later on, but it's kind of like setting up for the finale, in a way, I feel. And so, while there's a lot of information in it, I don't feel like there's enough relevant to talk about, if that makes sense. But, in chapter 24, specifically, like, if you go and read this book, you know what I'm talking about. Leia, you know, is thinking about concerns, and they hit hard again because of the future. Same thing with Luke. Because she's thinking about, you know, Vader was bad. He got turned bad. Even though he was an excellent Jedi, he turned bad. And she's afraid of that happening to her children. Which really freaking sucks. Because those fears, you know, how could she know it now, but that'll be something later she'll have to deal with. So it's just yeah. It just sucks. But, near the end of the book, we have a callback to episode 4 where, Han's like, never tell me the odds, because Luke is, like, telling him, like, I don't know, man. He's like, don't tell me the odds. Never tell me the odds. The next note is that Fela is the worst. Fela, the Bothan, is, I mean, obviously we're supposed to, but he is, I hate him. I hate him. Freaking greedy politician, and it's political, like the prequels, and I love it, but he's such a jerk. I hate him. I hate him so much. Bring me back Akbar. That fish boy is my homie. And I hate Fela. I hope Fela gets put in prison. I don't like him at all. But guess what? Thrawn acquires the fleet. He won. There's 15 of those ships by the end of the book. But there was over 200. Which means he stole, for doing math here, that's 100 something. Almost near 200. But obviously 15 less. So he won. At the end of this book, the bad guy won. Obviously he won't win in the next book, because we have an entire future with these characters. But as for this book, he succeeded. And then we also find the dead bodies of the stormtroopers that, you know, Luke had to kill. And we see that they're all the same. And they're like, oh, it'll be okay. It's like, yeah, let's not lose hope. It's going to take them a couple years to get all the recruits anyway for those ships. But then they realize all of those soldiers look the same. They're clones. They found a way to clone them, which means that it won't take as long for them to acquire all the soldiers they need for those ships. Which is going to be a big problem for them in the next book. But yeah, that's pretty much it. Like I said, this book kind of like drags in parts, and other parts it's like really good. We're ramping up the story with Mara, and are hopefully going to get some closure with that, because her and Luke have this weird relationship, obviously. You know, she hates him, but yet she needs to ask him for help in this book. And when she's in danger, Luke has no reason to really be concerned for her, but he's really concerned. It's really weird. And obviously, we know the future with them, so. But, oh, heck. Yeah. And then, you know, Leia's getting super preggers, and Thrawn has his new fleet, and just a whole bunch of stuff that's going on that's being set up, I think, for the finale. But as for this book, I just didn't feel like there's too much to talk about. But still an excellent read, still worth your time, so go read it. Next time you see me, we'll be on The Last Command, the final book in the Thrawn trilogy. And we have still a bunch more stories after that to enjoy together. So I hope you'll see me for that. And I hope you enjoy this video. We'll see you next time. May the Force be with you.